Hello, Zach Daniels here, and I am preparing my scores for the upcoming concert this Tuesday with the Oklahoma Community Orchestra. And right now I am actually taking a look at Sheherazade. This is an old favorite of mine. I was so thrilled when we were programming this piece. I immediately was just so filled with excitement and joy because not only is it a fun piece to put on a show with an orchestra, but as a composer, it's actually one of my favorite pieces to study. It's got so much going on for it compositionally, orchestrationally. You could teach an entire orchestration class using this piece alone, in fact, and you could also follow it up with a composition seminar purely on the techniques found within Sheherazade. But right now, I find myself thinking about the idea of recurring themes, the leitmotifs that are used throughout. A lot of us may have heard of leitmotifs from things like Star Wars with John Williams, etc. But really, we find it going back in operatic literature, going even further, times like Wagner and whatnot. But we also find it in pieces like this in Sheherazade. Now, the first one that we hear, in fact, the first music we hear at all from Sheherazade, is this theme. And that theme we hear several times come up through the piece, and the music of it is really the Sultan. And because for those who don't know, Sheherazade is based on 1001 Arabian Nights. So that theme is the Sultan kind of getting angry, getting terse, getting a little out of control, if you will. And a lot of times it's followed up by the sounds of Sheherazade, the heroine of our story, if you would call her that, or the storyteller, coming in with some version of her beautiful violin solo. And you hear it with the strumming of the harp, and there's a lot going on every time you hear it. So there's already two leitmotifs. Now, what's interesting is, at the beginning, there's actually a break between there, because you don't just get the Sultan being angry and then Sheherazade coming in. You actually have this really interesting set of chords that come up here in the winds immediately after. And they just sit there and sort of float away. You hear. And then if I turn the page here, you can hear the next ones. And then you hear up near the top of their registers, or not near the top, in the top registers though. And it really kind of floats away, and it's very open in time. I can take as long as I want with the orchestra there. And for me, that is sort of Scheherazade saying, let me tell you a story. I know you are tense and upset and angry, likely with her, if you know the story of 1001 Arabian Nights, but let me tell you a story. And so that is, for me, imagine like enter dreamland, enter story mode type thing, because then immediately after that, you have the beautiful solo of Scheherazade. And it goes on like that for several bars. In fact, there's a small cadenza at the end. And I find myself thinking about that and how I should interpret it. And for here, I think what's important is this is really setting the stage. This is giving us our main characters. It's giving us the Sultan. It's giving us Scheherazade. And of course, it's giving us the fact that, let me tell you a story. That's what those long, drawn-out chords do, at least for me, whenever I am interpreting this score. And of course, after we hear that solo, this isn't the only example of brilliant orchestration, because the next thing we hear is actually the cello line coming in. And so on like that, as we get the representation of the broad open seas. And it is absolutely stunning to hear. And yes, you can actually kind of listen, and there's actually pirates that happen at some point. It's actually really cool in the fourth movement. But every time you hear that, you hear the ocean, and there are also so many other things. But I find myself drawn to this piece not only because of the leitmotifs, but because of how they're woven together. And I hope that you'll join us as we listen for a lot of these leitmotifs together Tuesday, September 26th at 7:30 p.m. in the Ball Auditorium at Garvey Center for the Arts at Oklahoma Christian. See you there. Let's make some music.